Good evening. This is the Tuesday, June 24th, 2025 meeting of the Flemington Borough Planning Board. This in-person and virtual meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Both adequate and electronic notice of this in-person and virtual meeting has been provided by way of publication in the Courier News newspaper on or about January 14th, 2025. In addition, notice of this meeting was posted in the door of the Borough of Flemington Municipal Building located here at 38 Park Avenue, and any handicap accessible entrances there too. Posted on the municipal website, provided to the municipal clerk and distributed to all persons, if any, requesting copies of same. This meeting is being recorded with both audio and video and may be rebroadcast. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Ask everyone, please rise as you are able for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stand one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Carla, can you please call the roll?
Sure, Mayor Carroll.
Here.
Councilwoman Fasar. Here. Mr. King is absent.
He's excused.
Here, he said he couldn't make it. Ms. Gibson is absent. Ms. Weitzman. Here. Ms. Swingle. Here. Mr. Schob.
Here.
Mr. Schultz.
Did you hear me?
I did practice, Mr. Dawson.
Here.
Mr. Echo.
Here.
And Mr. Ham.
Here. Also present, Attorney Kaczynski.
Oh, I'm
Engineer
sorry, I
Clerico.
just did it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Planner Beth McManus is attending virtually, and traffic engineer travel is excused. First item on the agenda is always a period for public comments for items that are not currently in front of the board. If any members of the public wish to speak at this time, please raise your hand. Come up to the microphone and identify yourself for the record.
Good evening, everyone. Bob King, Legal Brewing, 44 Stangle Road. I think if you can indulge me with just two questions, both relating to the development at Liberty Village. I recall during the testimony, I had asked one of their engineers what the impact would be to our business. Since we're an active business, we get lots of deliveries, both making deliveries to customers as well as receiving raw materials in the form of tractor trailers. What the development on Stangle Road would mean to our business. And the way I recall the answer was it would be for brief periods of time during the day, but the road would not be shut down for any extended period of time. You can imagine my surprise when there was a meeting at Stangle that I was unfortunate not to attend, where George explained he needed to shut the road down for about 4 to 6 weeks. I don't know how that's possible, so if you can help explain how this all works.
I don't have an answer, but it is absolutely something we can find an answer out and figure out, because I do remember that being a condition of the approval. And
I don't have the resolution in front of me to see exactly what that was, but
But it
it
was-
was definitely addressed. I remember that being a concern and there was a discussion.
I felt rather good with what he had to say, so
Yeah.
I'm quite concerned
Otherwise,
now.
I'm sure you would have said something.
I know that was concerned, but the emergency throughway as well.
So let's do this. We can pull up the resolution and look at resolution compliance. Beth, you've got a hand up, yeah.
Yeah, I will say that one of the conditions of approval was, I believe that road stay open. I just happened to have read that the other day, doing some resolution compliance work. So I can follow up with Kara and also with Bob to confirm that condition and to work with the property owner to make sure that they're compliant with it.
That is wonderful. It's unfortunate because they've made a decision to cancel Corn Tomato and Beer Festival based on.
That's
this.
why they canceled it?
That's what the FCP has done because George said he's gonna.
You guys
Told that.
I don't have, did they say that, Carla?
They were saying something about the trucks on the road because it's gonna be doing construction or something, and they could.
So they have to come through when the vendors come through, they can
Yeah.
only drive one way.
Yeah.
Now,
They said that was gonna be demolished or crumbled or
Oh,
something.
they're gonna close the road down. That's why they couldn't make it through. There was no way to come in and turn around. So that's, again, all leads back to shutting the road down, which is
Yeah, in the summer season when everybody wants to come out.
Well, that's probably one of the bigger events.
You know when they're supposed to start, when they're saying
I have no
they're
idea.
down?
Okay,
Wait, Mike Campion, were you at that meeting?
he's not on this.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Yeah. There.
Okay, so who's FCP liaison? Is that you?
No, it's Tony.
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 So that needs to get back to council on FCP, and we need to
Okay.
figure out what's going on with resolution compliance, and that our board's professionals, I think Beth said, they can work on that. That was not my recollection of the condition of approval at all. I think we all agree that there was some substantial.
That's a
discussion.
curious impact for our business.
It's a serious factor, yours and all the other businesses. Yeah.
From our works perspective, we haven't moved the station yet either, so what does this mean for all of our summer trainings?
Yeah.
Right, there's that too.
Well, thank you. If I may ask you another question?
You can, I hope I have a better answer for sure.
This one might be a little trickier and there might be some more acronyms.
Yeah.
So George approached us when he was in the planning phase. He wanted to raise the road in front of our business by about 18 inches. And the reason he wanted to raise the road because he had to raise the elevation so it was above the floodplain. We politely said we didn't like that idea because it would have a negative impact on our business. So he said, okay, I gotta go to the state and get special approval. I think he said you need to get an LOI from the NJDEP, if I got those acronyms correct. I'm curious, because I happen to be a little bit familiar with these things, and going to the state to getting such an LOI usually takes many months.
Right.
So what does that condition look like? Because that's an emergency access that will now remain in a flood zone. How does that work? How did he get approval to do that? And has anyone actually seen evidence that he's got permission from the state to do this?
So, Bob, this is probably something you're gonna have to look into.
Well, he has permits from the state for the work he's doing in the floodplain. And LOI he deals with wetlands. I don't think that's the issue
Okay.
here.
But he can have an emergency exit that actually goes through the flood zone?
Is the plan he has, but really should look at the conditions of that and what he submitted. But he, I remember when he came in with the revised plan, he said something about adjusting the grade so that he wasn't raising the grade in front of your place.
Right.
He made some, I haven't reviewed the revised plans for him, but that he did make some mention of that.
So, because I know he wanted to raise it about 18 inches, which is maybe good for emergency vehicles, but if a car gets stuck in a condition like that, an emergency vehicle's gonna have to push that out of the way. So I'm just curious, because I don't know how that all works. It just seems odd that approval happened. Relatively short.
I know he has DEP approval for the work he's doing with it. Now, whether what that approval was for, what plan, and whether the revised plan is coming back consistent with that, whether we have to go back to the DEP, I don't know, that I don't know.
Okay, that's my other question.
So we've got several people who are gonna follow up on this. Hopefully, even before our next meeting, we might be able to have some answers. Certainly the businesses on Stangle and FCP, I mean, that's a conversation. We gotta get council and redeveloper, obviously the redevelopment committee is gonna have to talk about those things. So.
Well, I think the bottom line is it's gotta comply with the resolution, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's regardless of what anybody else says, it's gotta comply with the resolution. So I think that's the first step. For getting anybody else involved is seeing what's in the resolution, and Kara, you may need to call Liberty Village's attorney, Don Pepe, and just talk to him and say, this isn't gonna work.
If he wants to deviate from, I'm sorry to interrupt, if he wants to deviate from that resolution, would you have to come back in front of the planning board?
Yes,
Yes. I don't think we have to get anybody else involved, we just.
Start there.
Yeah, start there. With Don Pepe, you and Don Pepe and.
And obviously, if there's anything in there that doesn't specifically answer the question, then I may need to talk to Bob.
Yep.
That, but
Yeah.
I think we outlined everything pretty well. I think there was like,
It was very detailed.
what, 40?
You spent a lot of time on that
We
resolution.
went through.
and
one by one.
and the applicant's council has signed off on everything.
Correct.
After multiple revisions. So it wasn't like they didn't look at it and agree to it, so,
Thank you very much.
absolutely, thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. We'll get
You
you.
have as many TikTok to your planning board meetings as we do.
All right, thank you.
Unless you're putting it in a major warehouse.
So no other members of the public here, and nobody else online on item 2 on the agenda is mayor comments.
I just wanted to just do a little brief update on the parking committee and where they are right now and what they're working on. So, we've been really kind of focusing on continuing on the safety issues around town and traveling around town. So we've been looking at these reticulating flashing lights. There is money in the budget for a few pairs of them because there has to be one on each side of the street. And we're anticipating a memo from Jay Troutman, so that we can bring it to council that the number 1 and 2 locations for them are actually on Allen Street, the corner of Catner with the school crossing, and on North Main Street on Allen, going towards the apartments, which was actually brought to my attention by a constituent who wanted more stop signs, more 4-way stops. And mentioned the Catner one specifically because people come down the hill from the cemetery and it's at high rates of speed. So that's, one area we're looking at. We're also we were originally looking at putting one of those down at Walnut Brook for people to cross over to the church, the Catholic Church. But there was nowhere to put, because it's all sidewalk and wall. We don't have like a real easement over there. There was really nowhere to put a pair. So we're now talking about putting in a Mesa to slow down traffic. There's one on Hart Boulevard if anybody's interested in traveling over that. My Campion did send out a snowplow to see how it would feel, and it was fine. And the chief supports it. So, we're looking at doing that as well, recommending that when Mine Street starts its renovations next year, maybe, to add that on to that. We are going to start really petitioning the state regarding the Flemington Circle, because a lot of people are crossing around that circle. The state has crosswalks with no safety features. And the state has offered to cost share with us. And of course, this is like, you have to use state police to monitor the construction, and their cost to put in $6,000 reticulating lights is $125,000. So, yeah, seriously, Kara, look at the look on her face.
It's actually insane.
It's insane. So, our reaction to that, because they said, oh yeah, you'll have to pick up, I think it was 25%.
5%, but it was still.
But it's way more than we could do all of them ourselves, but it's the state, it's the state road. And so our course of action is going to be basically putting the state on notice that we have identified a very dangerous area on a state highway, and it is their responsibility to keep people safe. It's not our responsibility, it's their road. Jay also got the state of New Jersey to retime the signal at Church Street and Route 31, the left turn light to turn onto Church Street at Wawa. So that's been retimed. And it's been, other than one morning, where there was a bit of a backup, I think it's one of those things where people think they're lucky, but it's really not about luck. It's just about good traffic control. So that's been done as well. So I think that's sort of where we are. We continue to have questions about bike lanes. Jeff has identified the potential for us to get maybe some transportation money from Port Authority. I'm sorry, NJTPA, to do a long-term study to find safe pathways. The chief of police and our traffic engineer feel that Main Street will never be safe for bicyclists. It's just too crowded and after the Union Hotel opens, there's just too much congestion. But it's possible to develop routes maybe somewhere else on Broad or on Park if we can get all of that under control. And Broad certainly is a lot better with all of the 4-way stops. So I guess that's what I wanted to tell you all. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Seeing none.
Thank you, Mayor. Council report.
I have nothing.
Thank you. HPC, Dennis.
Yes, I have four items. We've had two meetings since the last planning board meeting. 7 Brown Street, the renovation of the porch structure was approved, but the addition was denied, and there was a recommendation to rework the design to have the addition in the rear of the house. And the property owner really appreciated the input, including from our John Hatch, the architect. So he's going to go back and rework that. They approved gazebo in the rear of 194 Main Street, and HPC approved the porch modification at 27 Bunnell Street. Also, we're pursuing being a certified local government. I believe the next step for that is going to the council and then to the planning board. It's minor revised ordinance language that has been approved by the State Historic Preservation Commission. It was minor, but if the council supports it, then we would move forward with being a certified local government. And then last, I guess I have 5. We had a very successful historic house tour on Saturday. It was very hot. We had about 500 attendees, including volunteers, and really want to thank all the volunteers that helped out, as well as the planning team, Jen Williford, Wendy Orr, Kristen and Todd Cook. Kristen did all the graphics, which each year they're fantastic. And then Kim Tilley, and I don't want to leave out my wife Maria, but it was a great success. We had the 2 trolleys, which really came in handy with the hot weather, and they had water on it. So it was nice to see Main Street bustling, along with the tent sales. That's my input this week.
Thanks. Professional reports, Kara? No report. Bob?
No.
Beth, do you have a professional report?
No, not this month.
All right, and Jay is not here. Item 6 on the agenda is approval of minutes from several prior meetings, which I believe we are not doing tonight. We are tabling.
We're not, yep,
Okay.
yeah.
That's fine. We'll table. We'll get to that at the next meeting. Item 7 is completeness for Flemington Circle Realty application 2025-04, block 43, lot 901, minor site plan. There was a report issued by Bob Clerico's office that everyone should have seen on email. So maybe Bob, if you can walk through that, where that one.
Yeah, sure. So the report is dated June 20th. Kind of outlined what the application is. It's a modification of the existing building and a restructuring of the existing parking lot, along with some other relevant items associated with the modification of the parking lot. The report lists all the documentation was filed. I categorized some stuff at the end. There's a couple very technical, somewhat I want to say inconsequential, but items where they, like, for example, they only provided 5 copies of the documentation instead of 7. So I'm there's a number of checklist items to talk about. It's filing 7 documents. I would just recommend you do a temporary waiver. In the event, at some point in review, if you need extra copies, they would certainly provide them. The next was temporary waivers for some checklist items that we don't necessarily need up front. Needs and valid description, site easements, 200-foot criteria, pipe profiles, color renderings, and as-built plans. These typically fall in the temporary waiver category, meaning during the course of the review, should you need that information, I'll provide it at the end of the hearing. If you decide some of that information, it's 200-foot topographical criteria, you're probably not going to need, so you end up waiving it as part of your action on dealing with the application. They were asking for some waivers for checklist items. 11A, B, and C. I believe those all related to plan and profile and details of adjoining roads, which in this case are state highways, so we don't have any jurisdiction on them anyway. And then there was documentation that they didn't have, but I thought if they asked for a waiver, it would qualify for that, and they related to a wetland report A soil test, again, they're not proposed, it's an existing site, they're reducing impervious coverage. There's really no requirement to do on-site stormwater management. They don't fall under the, as a major project, the stormwater regulations, so they didn't do soil testing, they didn't do a wetland report or seek an LOI because of getting property, so it's basically all developed already. There was something about an owner's certification, to be honest with you, I don't recall exactly what that was.
I think that's the statutory requirement of, because there was an email with you guys, that the applicant, if it's an LLC or a corporation, has to provide a list of members.
I
that
think
own-
that was something different.
That's different.
That was something different. They didn't provide us with a copy of their filing with the Hunter County Planning Board, but we got a letter from the Hunter County Planning Board saying that based on their filing with them, that it doesn't warrant approval from them. They had, we have multiple checklist requirements for various types of contour information. One of them is for a 5-foot contour. They actually given us 2-foot contours, but we were waiving 5. Existing wells and septics, they were asking for a waiver on that. They said there aren't any. Again, permeability tests would go back to the stormwater. There was several other minor ones, 33G, H, I, and J, which I said were really not applicable.
Going back to 5 really quickly, that owner's cert, according to the checklist, is the affidavit of ownership and certification noted on the plan.
But the applicant is the owner.
Yeah.
So the applicant is the owner, so there's no one.
It's the same thing.
This, yeah. So, and then the items we said were incomplete, was there a calculation, how they come up with their fee calculation, they're a corporation, they didn't give us a disclosure statement on the owners of the corporation. They initially, I said the utility fee certification and the tax certification were not part of the original submission. They did resubmit, at least to me, I'm not sure they submitted to the board or not. But on the 23rd, I did get that documentation. If it's not part of the board's record, it would remain incomplete, and they should officially file it with the board. And then utility service notification, they have water and sewer they filed, but they didn't give us like gas and electric. They didn't give us a title search on the property. They didn't give us a list of prior approvals. They didn't give us N1 for the county planning board. They didn't give us the application, but we have feedback from the county saying that there's review. Same with the soil conservation district. They didn't provide us with copies of the filing with that agency. So those I put all in the category of incomplete. The applicant filed a letter saying that they agreed that they have provided that information. They're asking, basically concurring that the board should deem those items to be incomplete. And then what they were asking for is that when they do submit, when they do provide that information to our office, that they be allowed to, at that, once we determine that we have the information, they would notice for a public hearing, and then at the public hearing, the board would do their completeness determination and proceed with the public hearing. But
So Karen, there was some correspondence with the applicant the last couple of days.
Correct, yes, we got correspondence, I believe it was earlier today, basically saying that the applicant agrees to address every item that is being incomplete in Bob's letter. I responded back, they also asked if they needed to appear tonight. I responded back saying that they agree to everything, probably not. However, the board does still need to determine whether it agrees with Bob's recommendations concerning the waivers. So the board needs to look at that. If the board does not agree that each of those waiver items should be waived, then what I'll do is I'll let the applicant know that not only was the application deemed incomplete for those outstanding items, but the board would like to see whichever other potentially waived items that it's noted in Bob's letter, and then they will have to provide all of those things to the board prior to being deemed complete and scheduled for a hearing. And we've done that before simultaneously, as long as Bob has deemed them complete first, acknowledge that he has everything intact.
So are there questions for Bob from members of the board? Any discussion? So the recommendation is, I'm just gonna recap here, the recommendation from the engineer, the board engineer is to grant temporary waivers for only having given 5 copies, and that's checklist items BS, T, V, X, and 1, to grant temporary waivers for items L, 11D, 18, 19, 33A, and 36. To grant waivers for items 11A, 11B, 11C, and accept documentation that was given for items P, U, V, 5, 7, 10A, 17, 23, 33G, H, and I, J are not applicable, and then deem the application complete after granting those temporary and full waivers for the checklist items because of the other things that are missing. That's what the recommendation from the education is.
Right, and just to be clear, Bob, the temporary waivers means that they will have to provide them if the board ultimately deems them necessary, or they have to provide those prior.
If
to
the
your-
board deems them this, I suspect some of these, as you go through the hearing process, you're gonna decide you really don't need it. And you
Okay.
just.
So if there's no further questions or discussion, we need to. Is it 2 votes or 1 vote?
It's one.
1 vote, all right, so to grant those list of temporary and full waivers and to deem the application incomplete for missing checklist items A, C, I, J, M, N1, N2, O. That's what the action would be if someone wants to make that motion. Thank you. Is there a second? Second, Swingle. Is there any further discussion or questions? Okay, Carla, can you call the roll?
Councilwoman, sorry, was that you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes to.
Yes, to
Demon-
deem it incomplete.
The demon complete.
Ms. Weingold?
Yes.
Okay, Mayor Karen?
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman?
Yes.
Mr. Schoen?
Yes.
Mr. Schleinger?
Yes.
Mr. Dashna?
Yes.
Mr. Eckel?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there you go. All right, thank you. So if you can just let the applicant know, Karen. Great, all right. Item 8 on the agenda this evening is the public hearing for our 4th round housing element and fair share housing plan. Beth has many hearings tonight because all of these are due by June 30th. So she's appearing remotely. And I'm gonna turn it over to her for presentation.
Thank you very much. Sorry, folks, I'd love to be with you tonight, but like Jeff said, schedule in June is a little messy, shall we say, for all the planners doing housing work these days. So tonight, we're holding a public hearing on your 2025 4th round housing element and fair share plan. And a vote in favor of the housing plan really does 2 things. First, it would adopt it and thereby incorporate it into the master plan, making the housing element simply another one of the borough's elements, like the land use element or the economic development element, for example. It would also fulfill the requirement to adopt a housing plan by the end of this month, by June 30th, so that we can maintain immunity from builder's remedy litigation. So this is a really important document, an important hearing, because maintaining that immunity is really critical to the municipality being able to control our own zoning and fully be able to have independent decision making about what type of land uses are appropriate in the case of any proposals. So what I thought I would do tonight is share a presentation that will just walk everybody through affordable housing and our housing plan, and then of course be available for comments and questions. So if that works, let me just share a screen. Can somebody allow me to share?
I just did, you should try it again.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I think folks, you should be able to see my screen. Is that right?
Yes.
Not that you stop sharing. but-
Yeah. How about now? No? Sorry, I must have turned it off by somehow. Let's try again. Okay. Yes? Great,
Yeah, sure.
great.
Okay. Oh, you hit stop sharing.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. I apparently can't do a full screen mode. That's the challenge. I didn't realize that. So let me once more.
It was big enough in the last mode, you were fine.
Yeah. Okay, there we go.
See, they're good.
All right. So, let's see. Okay, so first, I started to allude to this in the introductory comments, but a little information as to why we do this in New Jersey. First and foremost, it stems back from 1975 when we had a New Jersey Supreme Court decision finding broadly that planning for affordable housing, planning for low and moderate income households is a constitutional obligation. And that was part of the 1975 decision referred to as Mount Laurel 1. There is Mount Laurel 2, 3, 4, and several other cases, as well as multiple sets of rules addressing affordable housing that that your housing plan responds to, and that this process or the Mount Laurel doctrine as a whole refers to. But more importantly, and what also comes from these Supreme Court decisions is the one of the primary reasons why municipalities do that, and that is the protection from builder's remedy litigation, also referred to as exclusionary zoning litigation. And this is litigation where for municipalities that are not compliant, meaning that they don't have an adopted housing plan, or perhaps they do, but they did not do what they were supposed to, it gives developers and other parties, but typically developers, an opportunity to bring the municipality into court and allege that the town is not fulfilling its affordable housing obligation, and therefore the developer should receive the right to construct a project with which is inclusionary, so a mix of market and affordable housing that is just bigger than what the municipality would have otherwise permitted. So it'll look very different in town to town to town, but the characteristic that ties them together is the fact that the project would otherwise not have been approved if not for the exclusionary zoning or the builder's remedy litigation. Because the reality is developers are going to make an application for development. They're going to take the path of least resistance. And so if they don't need to sue and go through the builder's remedy process, they won't if they have an opportunity to. But for towns that do not have this level of compliance or do not have that level of protection, builder's remedy litigation can be massively disruptive to a town by essentially taking away our zoning powers for the site that the developer has selected. And so it's really important for municipalities to comply with this process and to seek an approval of their housing plan. And in fact, you see that in the numbers in the sense that I believe more than 400 municipalities have decided to participate in this current round of affordable housing. Aside from the legal requirements or the legal consequences of not complying, the other reason why municipalities engage in this is simply to promote housing quality, to promote affordability, and to enhance quality of life for low and moderate income households in the community. So there are additional reasons, planning, housing quality reasons, aside from just simply the legal benefits to compliance. And so when we talk about affordable housing broadly, I'm referring to two types of obligations. The first one is the rehabilitation obligation, and the second is the new construction, and sometimes referred to as the rounds obligation, like the third round obligation, now the fourth round obligation, etc. And I'll get into those in just a few slides from now. But before I do so, I want to share a little bit more information about affordable housing in general. One of the questions I'm very often asked is who qualifies? And so what this table does, which is replicated from from a table that's also in the housing plan, is it identifies the maximum incomes of qualifying households. So in New Jersey, when we refer to affordable housing, we're referring to folks that are at moderate income or below, with moderate income being up to 80% of the region's median income. Low income is between less than 50% of the region's median income. And then very low income is 30% or less than the region's median income. In Flemington, we're in Region 3, which includes all of the municipalities in Hunterdon, Somerset, and Middlesex counties. And so just to take an example from this table, if you look at the 3-person household, which could be 2 adults, 2 parents and 1 child, or perhaps 1 parent and 2 children, the maximum income to qualify for affordable housing is a little more than $110,000. And so the incomes for this region in particular, as well as others in New Jersey, are really quite high, often surprising to folks, but it reflects uh, our obligation, as well as the incomes that do qualify reflect the very high incomes that we have in this particular region. And of course, the need for affordable housing reflects the lack of affordable homes in the communities. And in Flemington, while we're here talking about really just the fourth round, I wanted to highlight the fact that the borough has been engaged in this for a long time. And we had our first approval of our housing plan in 2003. We got second round substance certification, and substance certification was essentially the stamp of approval granted by the Council on Affordable Housing when they were active and present. The borough also participated in the third round. We adopted a housing plan in 2005, but the rules that we were relying upon were overturned before we were able to receive approval. We adopted another plan in 2008 that reflected the 2008 affordable housing rules, and that was successful. We got our stamp of approval from COA for our third round housing plan in 2009. In 2015, we had the Mount Laurel 4 decision, which created a very different regime and process for affordable housing, and it required that municipalities essentially reapply to seek approval of their third round housing plan. And we did that in 2015, and we completed that process in 2017 after executing a settlement agreement that set forth our third round preliminarily. We followed that up with a housing plan, and all of that was approved by the court in 2017 when we got what's referred to as a judgment of repose, and that was essentially the Superior Court's stamp of approval of our third round plan. And now in 2025, we have begun the process of the fourth round. And so what is generally necessary are really two actions, and one of them has already been taken care of. The first was to declare our participation in our affordable housing obligation, and that was done in January of this year. And the second step that we're embarking upon today is to submit an adopted housing plan and supporting documentation. And we're going to be submitting it to the Affordable Housing Dispute Resolution Program, and that is a new arm essentially of the judiciary that was established by a 2024 amendment to the Fair Housing Act. And that Affordable Housing Dispute Resolution Program, often referred to as the program, will give us hopefully a compliance certification, and that will be their stamp of approval that will give us our not only approval of our housing plan, but protection from builder's remedy litigation from 2025, July 2025 through July 2035, 10-year period, and that is the maximum that municipalities are able to receive immunity. So let's get into the borough's housing plan. Like I said, we have two types of affordable housing obligations. The first one is the rehabilitation obligation, and this number is 75. It was calculated first by DCA, but later assigned to the borough after our January resolution. And this is an estimate of the number of substandard homes in the borough that are also occupied by low and moderate income households. And it's based upon census and American Community Survey data. It's not based on somebody that is driven through the borough. But as I said, it was calculated at 75. And there are two methods that I'm recommending that we use to satisfy the obligation. The first one is participation in the Hunterdon County Housing Improvement Program. The county, like just about every other county in the state, runs a homeowner rehabilitation program where homeowners from their municipalities are able to apply to receive funds for a major system upgrade, such as a roof, HVAC system, etc. And in exchange for receiving those funds, they are obligated to maintain the home as an affordable home for 10 years. And so any household that receives the funds, they must be qualified for low and moderate income, qualified as low and moderate income. And so they may remain in the home for the next 10 years, but if they decide to sell it, it must be sold to another qualifying household at a lower cost. And so that's a program that actually the borough has participated in for many years. I'm recommending continued participation to fulfill the majority of our rehabilitation obligation. The second way that I'm recommending that we satisfy that is to apply 19 rental homes, 19 of the existing senior apartments at the Herman E. Cap development. One of the ways that towns can satisfy a rehabilitation obligation is to actually apply new construction credits. So in this case, existing affordable homes to the obligation. And so we have these surplus senior homes at the Herman E. Cap development. I recommend that we rely upon those to meet a portion of our rehabilitation obligation. In that 19 units, that represents 25% of the rehabilitation obligation. And while there's no set rental requirement, the applicable affordable housing rules do require that some component of the rehabilitation program be available to renter households. The Hunterdon County program is not available to renters, and so that's the reason why I've assigned the Herman E. Cap development to it so that we can fulfill the rental component. That 25% is equivalent to the 25% rental requirement that applies to new construction programs. And so it seems that that is the best standard available to consider how many rental units must apply to our rehabilitation obligation in order to fulfill that component. And so ultimately, for the rehabilitation obligation, just to simplify it, it's participation in the Hunterdon County program and applying 19 homes at the Herman E. Cap development to fulfill 25% of the rehabilitation obligation. And those two programs should satisfy the entirety of the rehabilitation obligation. And I will say that the town, we are not obligated to have 75 homes or 56 homes rehabilitated in the community. We simply need to work with the county to ensure that there's opportunity for 56 eligible households to apply. So it's not a requirement that we fulfill every single one of that obligation. We just simply need to make the program available. The second component, and as I said earlier, is the new construction obligation. And so these are the rounds obligation I had referenced. Our first and second rounds obligation is 38. Now that number was calculated by COA a few decades ago at this point, and it represents the cumulative affordable housing obligation from the first and the second round, and ultimately covers the years 1987 through 1999. The third round obligation was from 1999 through 2025. That obligation was assigned to us by Superior Court, and it is 8 units. And then our fourth round obligation, which is for the time period now from July 2025 through July 2035, that obligation was originally calculated by the Department of Community Affairs, but later assigned to us by the court program, and that is 25. And so I'll go through each of the rounds, but in terms of the big picture, we are able to satisfy our first, second, third, and our fourth round obligation using projects that are already constructed or already approved. And so typically when I do these public hearings for fourth round housing plans, what I spend most of my time talking about are the new sites, the new zoning districts that I'm recommending. But here, your plan is really, it is not about creating new zoning or new sites. It's really about reshuffling credits so that we can have full satisfaction of each round in the way that best serves the borough and in ways that are compliant with the affordable housing rules. And so I'll go through each of these projects, but as you can see, we've got 8 projects that give us not only enough credits to meet all of our obligation, but actually give us surplus credits as well. And so with that, for our first and second rounds satisfaction, we have a variety of units. We've got the Anderson House, which is it's a special needs housing in the category of a group home, but it's special needs housing for women that have experienced domestic violence. And that's actually been a project that we've received credit for multiple rounds at this point. We are also seeking credit for the Herman E. Cap apartments up to the senior cap. as well as we're also seeking credit for a handful of inclusionary developments. We've got the Martin Village on Allen Street, it's fully developed. Flemington Electric at Main and William, also developed. Flemington Cut Glass, not yet developed, as folks know. And then we have Courthouse Square, which is, of course, is under construction. And these 6 projects, these 6 developments give us 38 credits and our ability to fully satisfy our first and second rounds obligation. The third round obligation is satisfied through surplus credits from Martin Village, additional units from Herman E. Cap Apartments, again, trying to meet, or rather not exceed our senior cap, which is 25%. We also have additional credits from Anderson House as well as Courthouse Square, and all of these give us a total of 8 credits to fulfill our third round obligation. And so for our fourth round obligation, again, these are familiar. We're starting out with Herman E. Cap Apartments. We're using another 5 to meet that obligation. We also have Courthouse Square, Spice Factory on Church Street, which of course is under construction. And then Liberty Village, both the inclusionary family sale townhomes, as well as the special needs housing, the veterans housing that will also be developed. And all told, it gives us 52 credits and a surplus of 27. And so we'll be able to use those 27 credits, presumably to meet the fourth round obligation, and to really continue to maintain protection from builder's remedy litigation. And again, here's the same map that I had a few slides ago. But what strikes me about this is we have affordable housing developments that are either taking advantage of our redevelopment sites, such as the Liberty Village and the Courthouse Square, the Union Hotel project, and another set of projects that are proximate to the downtown and are largely outside of our single family neighborhoods. I think Allen Street or the Martin Village development is one of the exceptions. But in general, many of our developments are intended to be mixed use or proximate to commercial uses, which I think really makes sense because it means we're placing additional housing in proximity to services and shops that are available in town. And so with that, the next steps for this process are to simply adopt the housing plan. And I should say that also includes adopting a resolution for the housing plan this evening so that I can submit the housing plan as well as the resolution to the program for their review and approval. There will be some follow-up work that needs to get done, although admittedly that is really for the council rather than the planning board. So there may be some resolutions. I'll have to update your affordable housing ordinance as well. Although admittedly, I'm hoping to get finalized rules to rely upon before I do that. And then once we submit the complete package to the program, we simply sit back and wait for that compliance certification. Now, we do have a 2-month objection period, and so we may receive objections from folks that are looking for some change in our housing plan, and that's perfectly okay. The process allows for it. We have through the end of the year to work through any objections and to determine if we need to amend the housing plan. And if so, we'll certainly do that. If we don't receive any objections, we should receive a compliance certification before the end of the year, though. And like I said, once we have that certification, we'll have immunity from then through July of 2035. And so with that, folks, I'm happy to answer any questions about the housing plan.
So maybe Beth, you can stop sharing screens. It's a little bit easier for folks to see. Great, thanks. So folks with questions, let me start online. Dennis, you're the online person.
Yeah, Beth, this was really helpful. Mine is just a minor question. Where it says Courthouse Square, it says constructed, and I was just wondering why that says constructed versus under construction.
Very simply, I think I should change that.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's in each of the phases. It's not just the fourth one. So it was just a minor thing. I was just curious, but I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let me start down here. Mark, do you have?
Just a question, so you have Anderson House listed, and is that like a rental or is that like?
It's rental housing for women that have experienced domestic violence.
So would, like that church that just went in for the people on New York Avenue, would that be able to classify into this?
No, not quite. That actually falls under a different category. That's what's referred to as transitional housing. And what I need from the, it's very similar to housing types that are eligible for credit, but it doesn't quite meet the requirements. And so I didn't include it in the plan. It doesn't have a restriction stating, although it is certainly available for those that are experiencing homelessness and are presumably low and moderate income housing. It doesn't have a restriction. And I also don't think that it has the programmatic requirements, such as minimum stay of 6 months offered to every resident and some additional support features as well.
Gotcha.
If that changes in the past, excuse me, if that changes in the future, rather, I will say that we can always incorporate that property in the credits that we may receive into any future housing plan. So we could do that as part of the fourth round. But one of the good things about this process is we're able to amend our plan pretty much at any point throughout the fourth round to incorporate new mechanisms or to address new issues that may arise.
Gotcha, that's all I had.
Thanks. Don, I'm sorry, I went out of order.
Nope.
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
I'm good, thank you, Beth.
I have one quick question, and it might have actually been answered with the answer you gave for the New York Avenue house. Does that apply as well to the Easter Seals house on Hopewell Avenue?
So I have to tell you, Mayor Caro mentioned that to me today when we were in a meeting on a different topic, and I have to admit I had forgotten to look into that Easter Seals, and so it's on my to-do list to determine if that's a credit eligible group home. It may well be, and if so, my recommendation is that I'll pull the information so that we have it, and if we need to amend our housing plan as part of any objection that arises, we'll incorporate it at that point. I don't know. I'm happy to if the borough would like, but I'm not sure there's, given the surplus, I'm not sure there's real benefit to adding it to the housing plan and going through the cost and the effort to do so if we don't need to. But I do think that the question determining whether or not it is eligible for credit is very relevant. It's just a matter of what's, if yes, what is the best time to go through the process of adding it to the housing plan.
Okay.
No questions at this time. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
No questions, wonderful.
I'm good.
All right, I don't have anything. And so we have this on the record. There are no members of the public online. There are no members of the public in the room. This is a public hearing. And I'm asking for any members of the public to speak, but there are none. So just so we have
We need
that.
to open and close it
We
to
have-
the public,
yes.
because there is no public.
We don't need to open and close because there is no public, so we will say that the public hearing is closed. Do I have to do a vote on that?
I think we're okay.
You think we're okay? Just making sure.
Can I just ask Beth to just affirm one statistic? I believe Flemington Borough is the only municipality in the entire county that is COA certified. Is that true?
Probably not. I don't know about COA. I would be very surprised if other municipalities, I know other towns received third round repose from the court in Hunterdon County. I'm certain of that. I would assume that that other towns also received approval from COA. But if you're looking to boost the borough, I will say we have got to be, I mean, I can't verify this, but I suspect that we are the best situated municipality in the entire county in terms of affordable housing compliance. It's really unusual to have the main task of the fourth round housing plan to really be about reshuffling credits rather than creating new zones and new sites.
Okay, I think that's important because, you know, back in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, a lot of redevelopment projects in this town were being pushed, that we needed more lower moderate income housing, that we were in deficit with COA. And it wasn't true then, and it isn't true now. And I think that's important for the public to know.
So, anybody else, any other board discussion? So, we procedurally need to adopt this fourth round plan. And then we will, there's also item 9 on the agenda, which is the resolution memorializing the action, but first we have to adopt the plan before we do anything.
Well, I think
Right.
the resolution basically
It
adopts the
adopts the
plan,
plan.
correct.
Okay,
That finds it to be consistent with the provisions of the master.
okay, so then what we'll do, I guess, is can I get a motion? We have
One second.
and a second for resolution 2025-10, which is memorializing our adoption of the 2025 fourth round housing plan as prepared by Beth McManus of Kyle McManus Associates for the borough.
2, 5, 6, 8. Okay, everyone is eligible to vote on this. Everyone that's here tonight is eligible.
Ms.
All right.
Swingle,
Yes.
Mayor Kara,
Yes,
Councilwoman Fedora. Yes. Oh, so, hold on. Ms. Weissman,
Yes.
Mr. Schob,
Yes.
Mr. Schlangen,
Yes.
almost said it wrong, Mr. Joshua.
Yes,
Mr. Eckel,
Yes.
and Mr. Hannah.
Yes.
all right,
Congrats.
thank you all.
Thank you, folks.
And thank you, Beth.
Nice work, Beth.
All right, I'm gonna sign off. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks,
You
Ben.
too.
Good luck.
Thank you.
The thing I will say is Carla has a
Can we
copy
find
of
that
the
first
resolution.
and I sign it?
Yes, we need to have it signed so that it can be sent over to Beth and she can go ahead and get that filed. I will send you the last page, which will have the vote on it, unless you wanna do it, it's completely up to you, but I'm happy to do it. That's perfect.
And then
You
I-
already put the number in.
And then, yeah, and then I put something in it.
Perfect. Yeah, that's why I separated those pages so they could sign and then I could send it to you after.
Excellent. All right, chair items, seeing as I'm pinching.
Do we want to amend the resolution, the
Sure.
agenda to incorporate the Mastral resolution that's done?
Oh,
Or
yes, I forgot
feels
about that.
comfortable with adopting it tonight?
The national, which was.
J Mastral Inc.,
That was the
which was
last meeting.
adding the additional apartment to the second floor.
I missed that meeting, so I have to
Yes,
recuse from that.
replace the conference space.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda.
I'll second.
Oh, wait.
Okay, sorry.
Amend the agenda.
Amend the agenda to add an item 10, new item 10,
Would that
document,
be a- Oh, yeah.
new item
I'm
10,
sorry.
it's okay, new item 10 to
Adopt
to adopt the
resolution.
resolution.
Yep, resolution 2025-11 for J Mastral Inc. with regard to 35 Main Street, block 17, lot 11.
Anybody second?
Second.
Sorry.
We can,
Mark,
I made the motion.
yeah, well, no, I guess you can.
we
You
can,
vote.
that, this is most, this is, we don't need a roll call to amend the agenda, do we?
No, we could do.
All in
it.
favor of amending the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, amended, agenda is amended. Thank you. So we are now, I need a motion and a second on resolution 2025-11.
Okay, eligible members, Caro, Fusaro, Weitzman, Swingle, Schob, and Schlanger.
So
I can't even see it.
Schlanger, so moved. Schlanger,
I'll
so
second.
easy.
Alright, so
Well-
first,
Okay, wait, who's
second.
Caro and Schlanker? Okay,
I
so.
said it a couple times.
Sorry.
And for the record, it's also, it's Hayne on hand. So
It's what?
Hayne, Mark's name's Hayne. No.
Sorry.
I vote yes.
Did you say Sora?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Fasora. Ms. Weitzman?
Yes.
Okay. And Swingle, Ms. Swingle?
Yes.
Did you say Schob?
Schob,
Mr. Schob?
Yes.
Mr. Schlanger?
Yes.
that's it.
That's it?
Rest of it's
Okay.
Alright, perfect.
Resolution carries. All right, so now new item 11 on the agenda is chair items. I still don't have any chair items. Our next meeting is scheduled for July. July. I guess I pulls up his phone and looks at the phone. I believe it is July 8th is our next meeting. I don't know what is on the agenda for July 8th. We might have minutes to vote on. We might have, if they can, I don't think Flemington Circle is gonna be able to get their stuff in with enough time for Bob to review it,
I
but,
doubt it.
so that's probably gonna happen at the second meeting in July. Is there anything else out there?
There's rumors that Bless Wellness might be back, possibly.
Yes, they did submit something.
Yeah, they did.
Bless Wellness.
A different location, yeah.
Oh, different.
Oh,
Yeah.
different look.
And something else that may be coming to the board for completeness, again, it depends on Bob. The Spark Car Wash did resubmit.
Right, and there's also,
That's something we
and there's
can-
also the issue of Captiva's extension.
Captiva's extension, correct.
Okay, so so I will say because of the holiday, if you know you are not able to be at the meeting on July eighth, please email Karen Giffen. And
Give it to her.
give it to the chairperson, if you wanna send it to Karen, that's fine, but there is I will say, there is an applicant who for the board secretary position that we're trying to schedule an interview for, so hopefully that
Are you unhappy?
we'll have some news maybe on that. And then obviously there might be other stuff, because it's summer travel season, we always wanna if you know you're not gonna be able to make a meeting, please just send a note to the chairperson so she can kind of keep track of things as well as that. Does anybody else have any other chair items? All right, everyone had a chance in the room, sorry, Dennis, everyone in the room had a chance to look through the bills, old school analog style. Can I get a motion to audit the bills?
Move,
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Carroll.
yes.
Councilwoman Fasaro.
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman. Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I should have been, Ms. Swingle,
Yes.
Mr. Schob.
Abstain.
I think it's-
Because you didn't see it,
I'm
so.
sorry. Mr. Swinker.
Yes.
Mr. Dashner.
Yes,
Mr. Rucka.
Yes.
Mr. Knopf.
Yes.
all right, Kara, do we need to go into executive
We
session?
do not.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Adjourned, first, second.
What?
Whatever. Says it.
All right, thank you all, have a good night.
Thank you.